Welcome to the webinar on retrogrades. This is retrogrades for 2015. It is sponsored by Babylon Gardens Apothecary, babylongardensapothecary.com. I am hosted by myself, Dr. Jymie Darling, PhD in Anthropology of Ancient Religions, and renowned occultist for 25 years. I can be found at jymiedarling.com as well as babylongardensapothecary.com. So, what are retrogrades to us? First of all, let's get a lot of the terminology out of the way. Retrogrades actually occur when the planet appears to be reversing against the backdrop of the sky and the stars. Of course, it doesn't really mean it's going backwards, but it does appear to from our point of view here on Earth. What is actually happening is the orbit slows down because it's out further in our rotation, giving it an appearance of being in reverse. So what does that mean to us? Well, that means that the areas that the planet influences also comes to a slowdown and seems to reverse themselves, sort of a blockage, if you will. So that means to us that there is problems that we need to look out for and to prep ourselves so that the retrograde does not affect us quite as bad. And there are ways to do this as in the retrograde, as well as to make this an advantage as well. Time for self-improvements can be accomplished in every retrograde. Now, many astrologists stoke the fire of fear and hiding, but there is a way to ride out this way and use it to your advantage, and that is through the use of alchemy. Alchemy in the form of candle-working oils and incenses can ease the actual retrograde so that you can ride the wave of the retrograde. The tree of life in every philosophy teaches the retrogrades and the advantages of the retrogrades themselves. Through the understanding of the tree being one tree, i.e. alchemy, and the many branches, i.e. philosophies, an alchemist can create the perfect elixirs for the time to not only ride the wave, but also to use it to their advantage. In this webinar, we will be looking at the general definitions of the retrogrades and the general advantages, and then fine-tuning it to this year, 2015, for you to work it to the best of your abilities. The Mercury retrograde. And this is the big one that hits everyone. Now, when Mercury goes into retrograde, communications would be probably tough, as Mercury is the messenger of God, and he rules all sorts of communications and connecting devices. Mercury is also attributed to travel, electronics, thinking, and mechanical objects. So when this planet begins to stall or go slower, we may experience problems in those areas. Your words or a phone call might land you in trouble. You might not get the phone call you're looking for. You may not get the emails you're looking for. And it's better not to open up, and instead lie low for Mercury to turn direct in those areas. That's the generalized idea. I tend to disagree with that because you can actually use those areas to your advantage. Now, the retrogrades this year starts at January 21st. And it ends on February 11th. Yes, we still have some more days in this one. And it's a hard one, and you'll see why, because it's also combined with Jupiter, which really creates a problem in personal lives. Now, the next retrograde will be May 19th, and it'll go direct June 11th. And the retrograde again, September 17th, and direct October 9th. So during the retrograde period, it kind of feels like Mercury has gone down into the underworld of your philosophy. Okay, the transit lasts for approximately 3 weeks. And those who are sensitive to this transit, they actually begin to feel the energy early in what's called the shadow period, which begins about 3 weeks before the actual retrograde. So this is why half the time Mercury seems like it's longer than 3 weeks. In this time, we become more right-brain orientated, which in essence means that our logic goes into overdrive, and we think too much about events. We overthink things to a point of a problem. So we feel extra sensitive here, even kind of psychic even. Everything will seem hyper-real. You will notice things that you have overlooked before. This will prompt you to reevaluate, renovate, reform, and reinvent. There are danger spots, though. When Mercury is stationing retrograde, we are at its wobbly stage, where we're likely to slip up, make mistakes, and misread another's communication. The house in your natal chart that Mercury retrogrades in other words, where Mercury is in your natal chart, will be where you're hardest hit. And that house will have the most problems. But also, what you can use to your advantage will be where it hits the most. Because that's where you know where to reinvent, where to reevaluate, where to renovate. If you don't know where your heart is, where your chart is, the natal chart is for your Mercury, thanks to Babylon Gardens Apothecary, they are sponsoring a free natal chart to see what your house is with Mercury and any of the other planets that are retrograde too, because this applies to all the retrogrades. This is a very generous offer by Babylon Gardens. So just send in your birth date, time, and place in an email to babylongardens@yahoo.com, and we will send you the natal chart. There you will question, where you see that house is where you will question everything. Back to just Mercury. Mercury retrograde will make you jittery about signing contracts because you will be constantly thinking, is this what I really want? It's also a time that you buy big purchases only to regret them later as an unnecessary purchase. Mercury prefers to play the devil's advocate. It still keeps a distance, but holds a very long poking stick. Don't be surprised to see heated internet debates, especially from January 30th to February 10th, while Mercury is in this volatile decan. Of course, Mercury will hit this decan twice over, but it is during the retrograde phase that I believe the juice will come out, so to speak. Before the retrograde, it's a good time to finish off those solar left brain projects. Reinvention is a good word for the time right now. It is the key word. You should be taking the time to look deep into the self, slow down, reinvent what you are and who you are in small steps. This retrograde will help you understand your own demons. You may want to think about adding re to every action that you do before doing it. Rethink, redo, renovate, replenish, reflect, relax, recycle, repeat, etc. Reinvention is the communication for Mercury during the Mercury retrograde. Communication can go absolutely wonky, just out of control, and very quickly. Misunderstandings may happen, and people might have trouble expressing themselves properly. Pay close attention to what others are saying. Don't rush to make your point. Instead, give the other person your full attention. Make sure that you do not jump to conclusions on what they are saying. Mercury causes tensions to ride really high in communications, and you are likely to jump up to the defense immediately, and you don't want to be defensive. Also, choose your words carefully. Before you shoot your mouth off or hit that send button, reflect on the message that you're conveying. Bring mindfulness to your words and infuse kindness and compassion into any message that you put out there right now. Redo your communications very carefully in chosen words when speaking to people. Make sure that they do not misunderstand you and are jumping to conclusions on what you're saying. That is the whole idea of repeat. This is also a time, because of the Jupiter retrograde that hit the Mercury, and we'll cover this again in Jupiter. It's a time of liars and rumors. The snakes in your grass come slithering out and hiss their lies to cause discord. Mercury is, unfortunately, used to the advantage of the rabble-rousers. They use this time of angst and defensiveness to bring discord among longtime friends with lies. This is their way into the good graces and what they see as the quote-unquote cool kid circles. So be aware of the drama that lies within this retrograde. Keep a clear head on who is the center of the drama. Let me give you a hint. It's the one that's playing the largest victim, and the woe is me, using something tragic to to keep you feeling sorry for them while they cause discord inside the groups. Relationships inside Mercury retrogrades. If you're having troubles with a loved one, this may be a good time to hold off on making any major decisions. Instead, how about you just take some time and reflect on how you feel? Are you really happy? Has the relationship been on a bad course for a long time? Or is it simply just this retrograde? Now, do you and your partner want the same things? Or are you just not seeing eye to eye during the retrograde? Are you willing to work on the problems, such as a therapist, or just talking it out? Or is it a time to find closure and set yourself free? This is a time to either reflect on letting go, hold off on that decision to do it, though, until after the retrograde, or perhaps sitting down and reinventing the relationship. In business, Mercury retrograde is a perfect time to redo your business plans and goals. Use this time to reorganize your office, reorganize your business plan, redo your website, redo your business image, redo your business cards, find something kind of new and snazzy. Redo anything that is outdated or could use a tad bit of sprucing up. Start fixing any problems on your website. Add some widgets, some pizzazz to your site. Start a new project to bring people to your website that is not necessarily a new thing in your life, but rather an old project that can reinvent a better way and give it a new look to the old style. And as an example I want to use, I used to do occultist radio for when I was at Panpipes, and it, you know, on the floor every day. I'd go out back there at night, and I would start a radio show where I taught things. And I considered redoing the occultist radio and reinventing and bringing it back to a radio show when I decided it hit me during the retrograde. Ooh, webinar. That's a great way to reinvent teaching to people and to put it onto the website. And so instead of hosting it on third-party websites that eventually close down, and then I lose the podcast, I have found a way now to host it onto Babylon Gardens Apothecary website so that it can be accessed constantly and without sign-ups and newsletters and emails that you get bothered with and slammed with on the spam that you get from hosting on the other sites. So now this is great, right? Because it's a new way of doing things, and it's not a new project that I'm doing, but I am reinventing an old project, and that is the purpose of the retrograde. Now's the time to bring back forth old advertising styles. Reinvent them so that you can bring in new customers. And just remember, wording, the way you speak during the retrograde, very important. You want to be very precise and watch your wording. Spiritually, this is a time of reflection. Take the time to reflect on what you know, what you have accomplished in your philosophy, and on the tree of life of your philosophy. Seek out the point you are at for enlightenment. Your health, oh, so important right now in the retrograde. It really is. This is a time of renewing the self and resting. Try to take some time out for you. Take care of your health. Mercury sees us doing foolish amounts of labor and mind-bending workloads. So it's important to remember to set limits and to make time to breathe and rest our minds and bodies. Don't try not to kill yourselves. Our next retrograde is the Venus retrograde. Now, when Venus goes into retrograde, relationship issues crop right up from nowhere. There would be certain inhibitions or restraints in your relationship. There would be all sorts of forces acting against your relationships, particularly in the love area. Now, when you say relationships, it's like friendships and everything else. Love, everything. Hence, this is a time to act wisely and take proper decisions that would not impact your relationship severely. Okay? It retrogrades on July 25th and goes direct in September 6th. It's interesting because in Venus, the Babylonian and Mesoamerican astrologers paid close attention to Venus's cycles. particularly to her first appearance as a morning star, which was considered actually a very dangerous time. The Babylonians called Venus the double-phased Ishtar, the morning star of war and the evening star of love. Greek astrologers called the morning phase of Venus Lucifer, the light bearer, and the evening phase Hesperus, or setting in the west. Mesoamericans linked the morning phase of Venus with Quetzalcoatl, one of their major gods, believing that this was a time when leaders are struck down and natural disasters occur. When Venus is in retrograde, expect old friends and or lovers to re-enter your life. During this period, financial returns are going to be delayed. Affection is going to be more difficult to receive and express. Venus retrograde is a good time to reflect on your values, to review your relationships, donate your energies to a charitable cause. When Venus is in retrograde, it provides lessons in evaluating the real worth and value of people and things in your life. With existing relationships, this cycle actually produces experiences where it is easier to discern the relative worth and value of people in your life. Discrimination is more effective. Now, you may become readily aware of any problems, differences, and unresolved issues. This is not a time, however, to react upon any unfavorable awareness. Just to figure it out. Under the retrograde influence, you have to assess the severity of the problem and the cost-benefit of the relationship. Wait until Venus goes direct before acting on any of the reassessments that you've done. This Venus retrograde takes place in the sign of Capricorn, so it promotes serious relationships and practical values. There's a yearning for stability that can leave you feeling alone, even among friends. The need for responsibility is highlighted. Now, when I say to use this retrograde to assess everyone in your life, and I say if they do not have value, I'm not really saying how you can use them or what they can do for you. I'm saying the enhancement that they bring to your life, the happiness that they contribute to you. In the Venus retrograde, if you can't see what the happiness is that they are bringing to you, and all you can see is the drama and the grief and the headaches, then it's time during the retrograde to assess that. Consider a gentle way of removing yourself from them, not harshly. There is no reason to be jerk about this. But during the retrograde, it is time to assess what you have in the circles that are around you. Remember, the way you live your life, the way you're seen, and the happiness that you bring to yourself are the first 5 people that you can name off that you have surrounding you. If you say someone that is the first 5 in your list, and they are, in essence, drama and headache, and you cringe when you say their name during the retrograde, so you might want to consider the severity of the cost-benefit. I mean, if they're not beneficial, and again, not using them, but beneficial happy-wise, if they make you just go, ugh, every time you see a text, now what? In the retrograde, it might be time to cut the relationship off, and not to be cruel to the person, but you may be the enabling part that allows them to be that way. This isn't to say that people aren't allowed to talk to their friends and unload problems, but if there's no benefit to it, if it's just constant drama that you're bailing them out of, and you might want to consider removing yourself from them. And again, you don't do any direct action during the Venus retrograde. It is purely for consideration. Okay. Our next retrograde is the Mars retrograde. Now, when Mars turns retrograde, you shall find it difficult to speak up for yourself. Okay? There would be a lack of self-confidence, a lack of drive, and other hindrances that stand in your way of your dreams. You want others around you to fight for you, but would be disappointed by them. You have a feeling that you're being utilized by others around you during this time in probably a negative way. And when I say that, it's kind of being used. However, try to assert yourself and wait for Mars to turn direct when your confidence level goes on up. Luckily, 2015, guess what? We don't see a Mars retrograde. And although there is not one this year, we chose to include it so that you can understand how to handle it. In astrology, Mars symbolizes energy, passion, drive, activity, anger, assertiveness, and aggression, and the survival instinct, sexuality, desire, courage, initiative, and self-confidence. During the retrograde period, the Mars energy is turned inward and does not work in direct or forthright manner. It causes you to stew and boil inwards. It causes you to stand and just hold the grudges, and the old ones that you had come to surface. It's possible for anger and resentment to build incredibly quick, creating an internal pressure that is released after Mars resumes its forward motion. So you're kind of like a volcano, pressure cooker, just ready to boom when it goes direct. And again, we don't have one this year. So, but when we do have one, this is the time to evaluate how you're directing your efforts. Mars resumes, resumes, and you want to have a direct plan of not exploding and having the next 2 weeks jumping through hoops, trying to control the anger issues. And what you need to do is sit down and ask yourself, are you procrastinating? What makes you feel energized? What are your current goals? What makes you angry? How do you handle conflict? What is the center of the grudges? How would you like to see them handled in a sane and gentle way? Everyone is up for change in some area now. And when you are presented with the opportunity to change, it's best to work with the energy. Otherwise, difficulties will ensue. Breakdowns are likely to occur. Things don't work the way they should or as you like them to. Plans require alteration. Stamina is diminished. Irritation builds. Nervous breakdowns, the fact that you feel that you're right there on the edge of the line of absolute breakdown and nervous and stress and nerves. And again, we don't have a Mars, so we're lucky there. Now, this is why we have the huge problem with the Mercury retrograde right now. And that is because with the Mercury retrograde, we also have Jupiter retrograde happening at the same time. So, with that said, let's get into the Jupiter retrograde and see what it is doing to us right now. Jupiter is also a ruler of travel, just as Mercury is. When in retrograde, our travel plans would be adversely affected. Even the best well-laid plans can fall apart. Luggage gets lost. There will be failures in transportations. Strikes and reservations just got canceled or get mixed up. Double check your travel plans. Okay? It's also a time that promotes pessimism. Plans slow down, especially in business. Prosperity seems to go a little backwards, and you don't see the flow of money that you see usually. And because Jupiter also handles physical health, you find yourself feeling drained, sick, or injured a lot during the Jupiter retrograde. Now, the emphasis when Jupiter goes into, and it goes, we're in it. We've been in it since late December, and we are coming out of it not on April 8th. So you see this happening April 8th. So this is a long time retrograde. Jupiter is a big, long one. The emphasis is upon inner awareness and inner growth. It's an excellent time to get in touch with personal integrity. When in retrograde, Jupiter is afflicting natal planets. You will find yourself dealing with so much phoniness in both yourself and others. Again, this is the time when those snakes that we mentioned in Mercury, they come on out. Okay? What makes this worse right now is that when Mercury is in retrograde at the same time. So you find the phoniness, you find the liars, you find the rumors, and you find the snakes that are trying to break up long-time relationships. And it causes long-time friends to turn on another with a simple-placed rumor and a few lies. The phonies take this time with Jupiter to weasel their way into your life with lies and gifts with agendas attached. They use their skills of business like ways such as giving free websites, free photography, free drugs. Now, with that said, yes, I'm giving free webinars. Again, this was actually ideas planted before the retrograde. So if there are things that were free prior to the retrograde, perfect. Perfect. If they really stepped it up during the retrograde, problems. Big problems. There are some things that have been going on free. I know that there are like free rituals that people have been giving and free courses. I'm included. There's free astrology reports that are being given. They're given all year round. There's some free 3-card readings that are being given by people. But these are things that have been given for years and years and years. And so that's not, you know, you don't look at somebody and go, oh my God, you're giving this for free. You must be a snake. Well, no, they've been giving it to you for free for years. So, but if you find someone that's new and they come flying in to your circle or your group or in your ear, you might want to question, what's their agenda? What are they getting out of it? And if they start with the rumors, because Mercury's in retrograde at the same time, and the communication, you might not want to act on what you're hearing. You may want to simmer down a bit. Relax. Get off your damn Twitter. Get off your damn Instagram where you're accusing people of stuff. And relax yourself. And think clearly, because with these 2 planets in retrograde, you got a whole lot of chaos in the form of communication and integrity. And you got a whole lot of people are peeking up out of that grass, slithering their way into your ear. You might want to watch that a little bit. Okay? When Jupiter is retrograde, you should not only evaluate how you are not being honest with yourself, maybe you're putting a mask on, but also take a good hard look at the people around you, especially if they're new. Now, again, with the Mercury in retro at the same time, you need to question why old friends are suddenly in your ear, too. You know, didn't talk to me for 2 years, and now you're coming back to me, and you're saying somebody I know right now is talking smack about me, or you're in my ear telling me something about an old time friend. Why? These 2 retrogrades bring so much drama into a person's life, and it's really time to technically look like that child puts their fingers in their ears and goes la 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 la. I can't hear you, because you don't need it right now, and because everybody, you've got some people that are just misunderstanding, some people that are jumping to conclusions, and other people that are using this point of chaos, this bad Jupiter-Mercury retrograde cross right now to really screw over people. And you really got to be careful of this right now. Okay? You know, it's a bad timing. Now, when opportunities arise while Jupiter is in retrograde, if they are from the seeds that are planted before the retrograde, this one started in December, again, FYI. This is simply a time to take hold of what you have done prior to late December and run with it. Investing anything that was a creation prior to December or after that's going to go after April 8th is the best way to go. These investments will flourish after the Mercury retrograde lets loose of us. Jupiter retrograde, it's more spiritual and philosophical. So, you know what? Take this time to explore philosophies in the self. Time alone. You know what counts right now? The tarot card, the Hermit. Yeah? Jupiter is known to bring back to memory or create an event that makes you think back at time that you had a better perspective and allows you to grab hold of that insight again. It's also a time that you can grab onto that tree, which is alchemy, and explore its many branches, which are philosophies. Because now you can turn it inward. Think about what it is that you truly want in your spiritual life and where you're trying, what enlightenment you're trying to attain. Old friendships come back into your life and allow you to either have the closure using the past insight or move forward with them. So you get these events that are created. It's hard right now, and it's difficult. And the reason why it's difficult, at this point, and it just seems that you're being overwhelmed and overburdened with communications and things coming back from the past. And you feel like, my God, I thought that was closed, and it really wasn't. It's because you've got Mercury at the same time. And it's a real bad cross to have the two of them in retrograde at the same time. It's almost a time to maybe not respond on the internet to somebody who's arguing with you. It's maybe not the time to send an angry text. It's certainly not the time to listen to things that are meant to incite you against other people. And I'd be watching what others say about that person, because, if you're a longtime friend and, the new kid to the block comes in and starts rabble-rousing, is it the longtime friend that's the problem? Are they the drama? I think not. Okay? Because they're a longtime friend for a purpose. So you might want to think about that quite heavily. Saturn retrograde. Ugh. Right? Ugh. Saturn goes retrograde. There would be conflicts with authorities. There would be some amount of abuse involved. Even you might misuse your authoritative position to a certain extent. There'll be troubles in getting yourself hurt in your workplace. Only patience pays until Saturn turns direct. Also, what you see happen is a lot of lust, a lot of debauchery. Either it leaves your life or it overwhelms you entirely, and you'll become way too self-indulgent during the retrograde. The retrograde for Saturn is March 14th through August 1st. Youch, right? Saturn turning retrograde will slow down the normal rate of activity so that better methods and strategies can be developed. And that is why you're going to use Saturn retrograde. Okay? As you see things start to slow down, don't panic. Now's the time to reorganize what you think you can do and reevaluate the steps on how you do things so that you get better methods and strategies. And Saturn rules the physical and psychological supports, structures, and armatures in our life. It produces the rules and regulations by which we guide our lives, our sense of responsibility, and our limitations. It allows us to define boundaries for ourselves by saying no. That's a problem, because when it goes retrograde, this capacity, not so hot, not so good. Okay? When you say no, you're saying yes. You're self-indulging way too much. Seriously, it's a time where you see cheating happen because you self-indulge yourself with the ego of sex and debauchery. You see too much drinking, too much drug use, overeating, too much sweets. You find that you don't let the boundaries between people, they just kind of dissipate. And when you should say, no, I can't do that, you say yes. No, I can't go out until 4 o'clock in the morning drinking with you because I have to be to work at 6 a.m. And any other time you'd say no, you look at him and you go, yes, let's do this. And you pay the price for it. So, and when we do this, we can't actually realistically be expected in any situation to accurately assess what is a good decision. Okay? Because we become insecure and we think, well, if I say no, they're going to think bad of me, where not really. It would just be a no. Okay? Oh, I'm going to let them down. No, stop that. So you have to watch yourself, and you have to really assess the situation. And before you say yes, okay, assess really whether or not you really want to, or if it's good for you. Don't be afraid to say no during a Saturn retrograde. And it's especially in the activities and relationships ruled by Saturn's house position. And what that means, again, the natal chart. Where is it in your natal chart? Okay? Because that is where you're going to have the biggest backbone. Where is Saturn in your chart? Or what's, you know, what houses have the Saturn influence to them? That said, again, Babylon Gardens is offering a wonderfully free assessment. Just have to have birth date, time, and place. Email to babylongardens@yahoo.com, and I'll send you your chart. So, now, during this period when it's doing its retrograde, transiting, it is essential that we go back and assess and solidify commitments made, projects started, or responsibilities undertaken in the past. This must be done before we can continue. When it's in retrograde, the opportunity to reassess what we have taken on, to finally say no, to back out of a commitment, or to improve organization of a project is what we're looking to do. So now's the time to look at something and go, my God, what was I thinking? No. No, 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 no. Past projects that I said yes to. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to use Saturn's seriousness to reorganize myself. And I'm going to find that part where I've really overburdened myself. Okay? And again, sit down and seriously organize yourself. While the process is going on, while you're working with what you have at hand, you should be warned against taking on any unnecessary responsibilities or long-range commitments. Again, only deal with issues from the past. Saturn is about death and a rebirth. So you want to let go of old cycles so that when the retrograde is done, you have a new cycle. The same token, you don't want to start something new and say, oh yeah, I'll do that for the next 3 years. Because, again, Saturn has this boundary problem. So only deal with your past. Don't look or create new issues. Don't look or create new projects during this retrograde. Don't take on anything. You know, refrain from saying yes. And that's a long period of time. So it's really about watching yourself. And if you have to deal with a new issue, take some time. Don't be so apt to jump and say, okay, you know what I mean? Hold yourself and say, can I have a few days to think on that? I'll get you your answer in a few days. All right? And then take those few days. Okay? Saturn, so it gives us a chance to go back, reorganize, renegotiate. Any activities or commitments seem to be a source of frustration for us. So you want to make sure that you do that. Uranus retrograde. Now, these go to some of the outer planets that go to retrograde. And the outer planets that do the retrograde, they affect individually, yes, but you also see a huge amount of the population affected in the exact same way. If Uranus is in retrograde motion, you probably live your life to the extreme in many aspects, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. There's little middle ground in your frame of mind. You see life as black and white with little to no gray areas at all during this retrograde. And it goes retrograde July 25th and stays there until December 25th. You know, this seems to be more potent and more Uranian than when in retrograde. When your Uranus is direct in the natal chart, intuitive and inventive impulses flow on a regular basis. But when it's in retrograde, this energy, it builds up to a certain level, and then it explodes forth as a eureka, aha experience. In this building process, Uranus tends to be more potent and more willingly dogmatic. This motion that it's in when it's in retrograde tends to stimulate deep psychological investigation and analysis. Its research, however, seeks answers that satisfies the mind and explains why. However, this is frequently when people make mountains out of molehills in their quest to know why. Huh? Why? Why didn't you return my text in an hour? Because I was in a class. But no. Why couldn't she just pick up the phone and just say, I got it, or send a smiley face or anything like that? Because I was in a class. But why didn't you, and so all of a sudden this small thing becomes a mountain, and it turns into an argument of why. And then you have to take into effect what else is in retrograde at that moment, because you are looking at a whole lot of other influences coming in. And so now you have the influences that are coming in that are in retrograde during this time period. And then at the same time, this one goes retrograde and starts the mountains out of molehill. Why? Okay? It favors activities that require bursts of inventive and intuitive energy. It favors psychological counseling connected with freedom urges and disconnected patterns of relating. When it's in retrograde, you see, the rebellious urges tend to bottle up and then burst forth seemingly out of nowhere. And it is, since this is a planet that affects less individually and in the few numbers, as far as mass rebellion, you see more whole and larger numbers in big movements of rebellious activity. In other words, you see more, protests. You see more, rioting. You see more group rebellious activity than simply one person rebelling. Now, that's not to say one person doesn't rebel. Of course you do. But you don't rebel on a mass scale. I don't know. You might decide to cut your hair short. You might decide to dye it pink just to be rebellious. But when it's in retrograde, what you see on the news are riots and then protests that turn a little violent, and then again you have to consider what else is in retrograde at that point. So when Uranus is bottled up and it comes out, it does have activity springing forth for you, and the rebellious part of this could be used to your advantage. You can use it as a big creativity burst to rebel against what you usually do that keeps you stifled and allow yourself to be more creative. When Uranus it awakens freedom urges, causing the individual to suddenly feel to rebel against any ruts, any bad habits, any confinement in the life, anything that you feel is holding yourself back. And again, you have July 25th or December 25th. That means you've got Saturn in retrograde at the same time. So not only do you have the rebels happening, you have boundary problems and this influx of self-indulgence. Luckily, Jupiter will be gone, no Mars. You will have Venus in retrograde. So you'll then see rebelling against in the relationship, as well as the self-indulging. And during this time, hate to say it, you got a retrograde at the same time in Mercury. So you've got a whole lot of retrogrades happening, and when this rebellious thing comes through. So you figure you've got Mercury happening, you have self-indulgent problems with the inability to say no, you have relationship problems and Venus problems. In Mercury, you got the rumors and the snakes, and then you add in on top of that this year, when Uranus goes retrograde, you also have this need to break free and get out of ruts. This is why it is actually important to know how to use each of the retrogrades to the best of your advantage. Not simply try to go with the flow of this, or walk in the energy and just duck your head and hope to God it doesn't hit, because you got some really, really strong retrogrades all heading right there at the end of the year, September through December. It's going to be one tough cookie. And this is why you start preparing yourself for all of the retrogrades. Right? Neptune, another one. And it's going to happen during all the other retrogrades. And it's in Pisces. Neptune, when retrograde, logic falls to the wayside. People gain interest in intuition or esoteric matters. Great, that's wonderful. Except that logic falls to the side and you just look at people with one raised eyebrow. What? Oh, what? Oh my God, what? And people gain an increased interest in the esoteric. That's wonderful. Dreams and psychic abilities find new followers as people begin to analyze their inner natures. This is great. New outlets of communications come to the surface as artistic abilities get expressed. Again, beautiful if it was on its own. However, because it goes June 11th through November 18th, you're in the Saturn retrograde. You have a Mercury retrograde. You have a Uranus retrograde. So you're hitting kind of hard in this. Do you know what I mean? I believe, if my memory holds true, you also have Venus hitting at the same time. Okay? So, similar to the Neptune, the retrograde causes sensitivity and receptivity to be much more acute. Now, we're allowed to see far more than is possible when Neptune is direct. It's intuitive and inner vision that bestows a different, more insightful perspective on matters. Now, you got to remember, though, people's feelings also become very acute. And because you have the other retrogrades, you find people being much more sensitive to what you say. Our feelings are more astute at picking up and perceiving the elusive. It is easier to ascertain information about issues that have eluded us while it was direct. Okay? As one perceptions become more acute, it's important to listen more. Listen to that inner voice. So again, your logic is falling to the wayside. Don't try to be logical. If you try to be logical, your logic is going to be all kinds of messed up. Okay? All kinds of messed up. You're going to have to be more like the High Priestess card of the tarot, where you're balancing the perfect idea of what you know against the intuitive nature of what you feel. Listen to that inner voice. Okay? It is both an asset and a liability. Why? Because you feel more, you sense more, and you absorb more of the energy that's around you. And so you can become completely emotionally and psychically overloaded. It's important that you avoid drugs, chemicals, and stimulants while Neptune is in retrograde. Protect yourself by refraining from associating with addictive personalities, psychic attractions, and overwhelming people who drain your energies. During this retrograde, they will just exhaust you. And addictive personalities, you'll absorb it. And because Saturn's in the retrograde at the same time, usually you would absorb it and it would just exhaust you. Now you will absorb it and you will indulge in it. Watch yourself. If you feel a little paranoid during the retrograde period, maybe that you're picking up too much energy from your environment. As an asset, this period is excellent for using and cultivating your psychic perceptions. This is the time to really cultivate and embrace your intuition also. A little word of warning when this happens, because of the Saturn influence with everything else that's influencing at this time. Grab a chunk of black tourmaline or snowflake obsidian, black obsidian, to absorb it so that you don't have this absolutely killing you. Pluto retrograde. Pluto is in retrograde. If Pluto's in retrograde motion, you face an issue of control. Feelings as if you control all things in and around your life, often to the extreme and at the expense of others around you, holding on to relationships so tight that it becomes suffocating to your partner, holding on to past relationships, refusing to let go and move on. What does that mean to us? It means that we become clingy, you become control freakish, You refuse to move forward, you start going backwards into the life that you that you had. You refuse to let go of people that you should let go of and move forward. The retrograde is April 16th, and it goes direct on September 24th. It's far more intense. It possesses a higher degree of concentration, and therefore it gives great insights into the subconscious. Because of this intensity, the individual can see much more than normally possible, and it is easy to become suspicious of motives of others. It's a time of great paranoia. The powers of regeneration are great during this retrograde. People with the natal retrograde Pluto, if you were born during the retrograde of Pluto, have a tremendous ability to overcome major illnesses that might otherwise cause permanent disability. Remember, retrograde motion is always directed towards inner activity, such as the psyche, psychological patterns that affect the physical body as well. Direct motion, on the other hand, is directed towards external circumstances. Under any Pluto transit, we feel pressure to eliminate and release the old, outworn, outdated, and obsolete in our lives. But when it's in retrograde, we are urged to let go of attitudes, thinking, or communication patterns, security drives, rigid emotions. A time to undergo an internal form of house cleaning. It is spring cleaning for the self. It's a good time to research into our own souls in order to determine what exactly that we want, that we do, and do not need or want in our lives. Because Pluto retrograde imparts an intense power for investigation, we should use this time to assess what recurring patterns in our life makes us feel out of control, and where and why do we continually give our power away, and under what circumstances do we react so defensively that we elicit attacks from others. Pluto retrograde marks a time where we should seek a greater control over our personal lives, not those around us. Again, you don't want to suffocate and smother everyone around you. And Pluto direct is better for getting control over professional and financial areas. So before going into this retrograde, make sure you have wonderful control over your financial and your professional life. So during the retrograde, you need to sit down and get control of yourself, your mind, your actions, your patterns, your psychological thinking, and how you react to things. The big thing about Pluto is that use this time to let go of old relationships and move forward and decide to move forward, because when you turn inwards, Pluto will cause you to grip onto them tighter, so that it feels like you have more control in your life when you don't. Okay? This was the end of this webinar. This webinar was sponsored by Babylon Gardens Apothecary, BabylonGardApothecary.com. Oils and incense to divert the retrogrades can be found at BabylonApothecary.com under Dr. Darling's Classroom tab in the subsection of Retrogrades on the chalkboard. And retrograde candles that are properly dressed and blessed can be found at Panpipe's Magical Marketplace, Panpipes.com. Thank you for joining me on this webinar. I hope to see you on further.